Hey, good afternoon to everybody. Blessings on your life. It's another day that the Lord has made, and we are going to rejoice and be glad in it. Y'all thought I wasn't coming today because I'm 11 minutes late. If it was yesterday, I would have said April Fools. Okay, so listen, um, we are still in our teaching. I don't want to call it a series. It was something that the Lord just impressed upon me on Sunday. And so we are discussing altars of love, and this is the way we feel about ourselves and the way that we exhibit um, how we believe is the proper way uh, to demonstrate what we call love to other people, right? And so I mentioned that I was laying in the bed or lying in the bed on last Sunday morning about 3 o'clock, and the Lord asked me. He says, "Do you love yourself?" And I'm looking. Yeah, of course I love myself, but as I begin to ruminate on the question, I concluded that at times I did love myself, and at other times I did not love myself. However, this is a critical topic of discussion, and I would do you a disservice if I was to drop off the mountain from where we left off on Sunday. So today, don't let the background throw you off. This is me live and in living color. It's a new day. Let's continue with our altars of love. I guess I can maybe establish it as a series because it's going to take me a little time to get through it because love is so prevalent. It is interwoven and in everything that we do in some way, form, or fashion. But we have to mind it out and understand what exactly it is that we're doing. So I want to get to a couple things. And on last week, we talked about three different types of love, and that love was agape, it was phileo, and it was eros, right? And we discovered that agape was a vertical love. It's a love from heaven to earth. It's a love from top to bottom. It's a love that for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believe will not perish but have everlasting life. That's found in John 3:16. I also attempted to establish that that was illustrated in the Ten Commandments, and I said it was either the first three commandments or the first four commandments. And it is the first four commandments that we see this vertical understanding, because we have to understand that God is love. He is love himself. And so he establishes himself in us, which is in the earth, with the relationship with him. That is a vertical relationship. So he starts off and he says, "Thou shalt not have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make any graven images. Thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain." And he says to remember the Sabbath day and to keep it holy. Those are the first four commandments. So I'm giving that to you in short. Those are the first four commandments. But with those commandments, it deals with the relationship from humanity to God and from God to humanity. He's trying to establish something in you about him. And so I'm really not giving that justice either, because I need to really break that down with an expository type of teaching so you can understand what does that law mean, that those first four laws mean. And that way you can kind of flesh out what the point that God is trying to make. The second cross, because you have a horizontal cross, and then you have a vertical plane, and then you have a horizontal plane. On the horizontal plane, you have the commandments 6 through 10. And those commandments deal with a brotherly love, a heart to heart, a breast to breast, and a cheek to cheek. We talked about last week how they have gotten miscued with this third love is called eros. And I told you that there was actually four more that I don't have time to get into. And so we have these three. We have agape, we have phileo, we have eros. And eros is the killer, or it is the leaven, if you will, into phileo and into agape that we have to address, because most of us, we operate out of this thing called eros. And eros is a very lusty type of love. It's a very emotional type of love. It's full of feelings, and it's full of me, and it's full of self-satisfaction. So it's got all those different components that is tied to it, and we measure based upon that. But we should not. We should go back to understand agape, which is that is the real blueprint, because without agape, you will never understand how to deal with phileo. And so when you deal with phileo, the law is thou shalt not covet, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill. That deals with a brotherly type of love. It's how do I extend my hands to my brother? How do I relate to him? Heart to heart, breast to breast, cheek to cheek. How do I honor him? What am I doing when I dishonor him? So you have that goes out on a horizontal plane. But without understanding the vertical, you'll never, ever get the horizontal. And if you don't get the vertical, you can't get the horizontal. So the eros, the feeling now, because we are made in sin, we are born in sin, and we are shaped in iniquity. And so we are going to look for a feel-good story and whatever, floats our boat. And that's what we're going to go to. And that becomes our truth. That becomes our truth. Truth for humanity is established when there is not a benchmark to check your ideology against right away. If there's nothing there to push back on how you think and how you believe, when you start to promote a certain ideology over a period of time, it becomes what we call a culture. And once something becomes a culture, it is a strong man, and the strong man is not easily defeated. And what we're dealing with today in our society is a cultural thing. This is the reason why we have so many different convictions, so many different ways, because we have allowed these different truths that are not true whatsoever to creep in and to shape us and to form us. And so now it is just our culture. Now, I said on last week that, or on Sunday, that one of the things that still haunts me today is my mother. She had a massive stroke. Ultimately, she passed away, but she didn't initially pass away from the stroke. She lived several years after that, but she lived very defeated. She was paralyzed, and it was very hard thing to go through for us as being the caretakers. And I can't imagine what it was that she went through. And so as a result of that, because we're talking about loving thyself, the continuation, and that continuation is based upon Mark 12:30 and 31. And it says, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all thy mind and with all thy strength. This is the first commandment. 31. And the second is like, namely this one, or the first one, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. There is none other commandment greater than these. Now, I say that because I'm still focusing on the question that God asked me: do you love yourself? And if you love yourself, you will do for your neighbor as you would do for yourself. one of the challenges that I discovered from my mother's stroke was that there was a lack of involvement. Now we understand that life happens. I lived 70 miles away from my mom and my dad, and so there's a lot of things, distance just kind of separates you a little bit, that I did not know, and only discover after the fact that mom was hiding a lot of the symptoms and this, that, and the other that was going on with her. So as I love myself, number one, it is for me to get more involved. Now I'm saying this to I'm talking to my audience now, because there's a lot of us that are, middle aged, and we have aged parents. And when you have an aged parent, let's say 70, 80 years old, you can't count on them to talk to you and to tell you what's going on with them. They don't do it. So you have to take the initiative. Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am my brother's keeper. That means my parents, my mama and my daddy. So one of the things, or the area that I failed in, was I was not sensitive. I did not pay attention to what was being spoken in my spirit, nor did I pause long enough to take the time to really go in and see what's going on with mama and daddy. Come to find out, mom was going to the doctor, but here's the thing, because Hosea 4:6, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. You can't count on the system. I can't stress this enough. The system is going to fail you. That means science, medical doctors, all of them, because you have to understand, they still operate out of a culture themselves. They operate out of a certain what do you call that? It's like it's a code. I'm still of the persuasion that there's a lot of medical mishaps that happen during surgery that we don't get the truth about, and doctors do malpractice, and a lot of patients die in the surgical room under the guise of medical practice, but it never gets put to us as medical practice. I believe that the doctors cover for one another. I believe that the coronary folks cover for the doctors, and they cover for one. I believe it's a lot of problems with systems and with structures. And so you have to do your due diligence, because if you don't, it's enough going to fall through the cracks anyway. So you want to get involved in that process. And one of the things that I didn't do, and why I'm bringing this to you now, is I was not studious enough to see about my mom. Now, when my mom went to the doctor, she went to the doctor a couple weeks before she had this stroke. And I mentioned this, one of the easy signs or tests that the doctor could do was put a stethoscope on her artery, and to see whether or not the sound was different from one side to the other. They discovered that she had 90% blockage on her left carotid artery. Now, I went back to that doctor. I visited him after my mom was in the hospital. It was too late at this point, and I approached him, and I said, what happened? And I mean, I was a little upset because to me that seemed like that should have been something that we could have prevented. Of course, he said that he done all that he could do, this, that, and the other. My point is this: you got doctors that are caught up with the cares of the world. You got doctors that are racist. You got doctors that don't care. You got doctors that aren't that bright. Even just because you're a doctor and you have a measure of intelligence don't mean that you are a really good doctor. And so we put too much of our stake into somebody else. God has placed things before us, and if we just hone in on some of the things that God has given us, then we can help the process along. And so with that being said, when I look back, I should have gotten down there, and I should have went to the doctor with my mom. Even my dad didn't know, which I don't think he went with her, but had he went with her, because when I was taking him to the doctor, he didn't know what to ask the doctor himself. So old elderly people don't know. And one day, I'm gonna get old, and I'm gonna may have some pushback with my kids as well. But still, you got to get to the point to when you have the strength and the wisdom, the knowledge and understanding, you pull those that you love, because those are your brothers, your sisters, that's your mom and your daddy, and you love them, and you want to do for them how you would do for yourself, or what you would want somebody to do for you. So now we still in this love thing, but we're talking about a health portion of it. This is going to be very extensive. So I'm just trying to get you to link up with kind of where I am as it relates to this. Now, let me say this to you from a person that has had heart issues at a very early age. Some of the things that we can do, and this is critical, because you can go, maybe you have symptoms, maybe you don't have symptoms. If you go to a cardiologist and they do, their basic routine, checking you out, making sure your lungs sound okay, your heart beats okay, no heart arrhythmias when it comes down to listening, all that stuff. When it get finished, you might complain that you're a little short of breath. They do a stress test on you. The stress test comes back, it seems to be that you okay, all that stuff. That may not be a telltale sign. And what I'm noticing is that there's a lot of people that, you hear about them this month, and they went to the doctor and got a clean bill of health. They checked all the boxes. 30 days later, they died suddenly. What happened? The issue is, as it relates to heart attacks, the issue is that we don't go deep enough, and we won't go deeper unless we know, because the doctors aren't going to tell you. They're going to usher you out of their office, and they say, well, this is our approach, and this, that, and the other. What you have to do, and I'm telling you this because a lot of y'all got elderly parents out there, you have to go with them and say, no, wait a minute, doc. What I want you to do is, even though you've done a stress test and all that, I want you to do a CAC. So you want to do a coronary artery calcium test, right? Because what that test is going to prove is what is the level of calcium that is inside of their circulatory system. In other words, it's inside of their heart, their arteries, and all that. If that number comes back high, even though the stress test checked out okay, that person is still a very good candidate for a heart attack. And what can happen is, if you have calcium on an artery, so you have what they call hardening of the arteries, or arteriosclerosis. So when you have that, you have a hardening of the wall. It can be on the inside of the wall, it can be on the outside of the wall. If it hardens to the point to where it's not bustable, then at that point it's still to a degree it's safe, as long as the artery is not caving in to the point to where the blood can't flow through it. But if there is like a pimple, if it forms on the inside and it's mushy, then that means that it can break. If it breaks, that's 9 times out of 10 what happens is it travels to the heart, and it lodges inside the heart somewhere, and all of a sudden your loved one goes to sleep. So this is just something very truncated. I am not a medical doctor, but I can talk to you about certain things because I've had a lot of health issues. And so with that, I understand systolic, diastolic. I understand a whole bunch of heart issues because I went through the muck and the mire with a whole lot of this stuff. And so now when I go in and I talk to my doctors, I talk to them very educated. Then does that mean that I'm foolproof? No. I mean, anything can happen to me. Anything can happen to anybody. But what I'm saying is that we've got to go deeper, because it is an issue of love. And how much do you love yourself is also contingent on how much knowledge that you take in. Because at the end of the day, what can be said is you didn't love yourself. Why? Because you didn't take the time to read, or you didn't take the time to pause. You didn't take the time to care, right? So you have all these different things that are happening. So I'm just trying to give you that as just a truncated thing to push you into a better area of care in your life. Two major things are contributors for death. The two major things is cancer and heart disease. Cancer and heart disease, right? Now, as it relates to cancer, when you touch heart disease, I'll get back to that in a second. But as it relates to cancer, because one of these two things is in every other family, just about it, you're going to be touched by it. If somebody got cancer, you got cancer, somebody in the family got cancer. Cancer is, they say out of every 3 people is going to have cancer in the world. Every 3 people. That is an alarming stat. So when you look at that, if it's out there and it's that prevalent, and we know that systems instructor and systems and structures have kept us from a cure. It's been a cure out there, okay, but they shove it under the rug because it's money. It's about money. So I'm not gonna let you get a cure. We just gonna let people just drop off, and that just reduces the population and all that stuff. But the bottom line is there are cures. So in the interim, in order to preserve life, that means that you have to get involved more. Now, one of the ways that I would suggest that you fight cancer is this: the number one desire of cancer, because cancer is a spirit. Cancer is a spirit. Cancer is a living and live organism. It's a spirit, right? And it operates and it wants to take you out. It comes from hell. It comes from the devil. I mentioned this before, that the enemy is after the dust. You are the dust, but it's after the blood. You can't not have cancer unless it gets into the blood, the cells. And so the enemy is after the bloodline, the blood and the cells. So he comes after it. So just from a scientific approach, one of the things that you can do, which is major, and that is to reduce the enemy. The primary enemy for cancer is one main ingredient, one main substance. Can y'all guess what that is? Drum roll. Sugar, glucose. It is the number one feeder. Cancer has an appetite, the biggest appetite. The thing that makes cancer strong and strive is sugar. I can't stress that enough. Sugar. What does that mean? That means that if you reduce your intake, now I'm being real nice and mild about it, but really it's to take sugar out. It's enough sugar out there and other things that you get that sprinkles itself into you, that where you don't have to just go and directly ingest sugar. Let me just read something to you that I discovered. It says cancer cells have a voracious appetite for glucose, which is sugar, and other nutrients, including amino acids and fats, which is why tumors show high sugar uptake in PET scans. A PET scan is a positron emissions tomography. They call it a PET scan. Glucose uptake. Cancer cells, unlike normal cells, often rely heavily on glucose for energy. Even when other energy sources are available, it still goes to sugar. And sugar is something that most of us, we crave. We get up in the morning, we drink coffee with sugar. We're going to have a donut. We're going to have bread. We have all kinds of stuff that's going, certain starches and all this. It turns into sugar. I need you to hear me. The high glucose uptake for tumors is the basis for a positron emissions tomography scans, which can help detect and monitor cancer. Cancer cells also require a large amount of other nutrients, including amino acids, fats, to support their rapid growth and proliferation. Then here, there's cancer, cachexia. I think I'm saying that right, that word right. In some cases, cancer can lead to a condition called cachexia, where the body loses weight and muscle mass due to increased energy demands and changes in metabolism. Now, I've got a whole lot of things here, and my resources are, you can look at Cancer Research UK. You can look at Cleveland Clinic. You can look at the National Cancer Institute. These are all the areas where I got this information from, and you can do the research on it yourself. But the main thing, this is very truncated, is that I want you to see that your sugar intake, you want to starve cancer out, take the sugar out of your diet. Now, I've went on and I've been doing this now for a good little period of time, and I'm doing the 18 and 6. So what I'm doing is I'm resetting my system every day. I only have a 6-hour window, and to be honest with you, I'm doing it like in 4 hours and sometimes even 3 hours. So I'm eating once a day, and with that, I'm getting whatever nutrients that I get in, and I'm looking at, that's just not to fast without purpose. So I'm fasting intentional. I'm also fasting being mindful in prayer. I'm fasting with an understanding of what is it that I'm getting ready to eat when I do eat, because I do need proteins. I do need a measure of carbohydrates, but I want to get the right carbohydrates, and fruits and all that stuff is full of fructose. That's sugar, that's glucose and all that stuff. That's another thing. That's for a whole nother teaching that we could talk about, because nutrients, and I talked about this Sunday, I believe it was, nutrients is critical when you talk about loving yourself. How are you loving yourself when every time you turn around, you putting sugar and sugar and sugar? You call it a sweet tooth, and you say that I love myself. But if you love yourself, you wouldn't do that to yourself, because at the end of the day, it's poison. I go to Planet Fitness, and when I go to Planet Fitness is a system and a structure for health, right? But when I walk through the doors, I see 3 big buckets, and these buckets are full of Tootsie Rolls, purple Tootsie Rolls, chocolate Tootsie Rolls. And all these people are in there, and they're trying to get themselves to look better, to feel better, and all that stuff. And the place that they go to promote health is got all this candy. And then they have coolers full of energy drinks that are full of glucose, full of certain amino acids, fats, and sugars that are not good for you in the end. But you got a system and a structure to tell you that this is what you should drink if you want to stay up. But you don't know that the side effect to it is it's doing something else to your blood sugar, and those that have diabetes and all that stuff. So what we end up doing is we kill ourselves on the side for the sake of tasting good, and for the sake of what they say to us that's going to it's health. They say that it's health, it's healthy, but that's where you got to do your due diligence. Like I said about my mom going to the doctor, you got to know how to talk to the doctors. You got to know how to talk to the nutritionists. You got to know how to talk to the packages that you read, because most of, if you read it, when we read the package is going to talk to you, and it's going to talk to you in lawyer terms that you don't understand, and you refuse to go and try to figure it out to understand exactly what is a GMO. What am I putting inside of my body that I say that I love? Because it is the temple of the Holy Ghost. It's the temple of God. And so you want to make sure that you take care of it, because it is the only thing that you have one of. All right. The other thing is packaged foods. As a rule of thumb, if it's in a package, whether it's a canned package, a plastic package, I don't care what kind of package, a food package, whatever package it is, what you should do is stay away from it. If it's in a package, that means that it was processed in some way, form, or fashion. And in some way, form, or fashion, it's not going to be good for you. Now, all these things that I'm telling you this because I'm saying I don't want you to love yourself. And when I tell you these things, you say that obviously he wants me not to love myself because all that stuff tastes good. See, everything that's good to you ain't good for you. And so we have to change the mindset that we're going in. It's a direction. It's a culture acceptance now. So we have grown to accept whatever they tell us is good, right? We got to be conditioned. So these packages, make sure if you go on now, I'm giving you the high road, the real high road. That's forget the packaging period. All these potato chips and stuff like that, get rid of it. Throw it all away. When you go down the aisles, don't even look at it. Don't look at cookies. Don't look at none of that stuff. Figure out a recipe that you can do that can curb your sweet tooth. I'm at the point now because I used to have one. And I'm not desiring food. I'm not desiring sugar. I feel full of energy, and I'm only eating within that window. Give myself 6 hours, but I really don't make the 6 hours, and I don't try to cram everything in. So we got like about 4 hours, and now I'm at the point to where I'm full of energy. I'm good. And so it becomes a lifestyle and it becomes a discipline. And it's also a place of knowledge and an understanding because I'm trying to love myself. If I die prematurely and I get to heaven and the Lord talks to me, Jesus say, well, did you ever think about all those cookies that you was eating? Did you ever think about that? Did you ever think about when you went to the doctor to ask him an intelligent question that maybe you had done some research on too? Did you ever think to maybe not have that doctor anymore and to get you another doctor? These are all the things that we need to do. Microwaves, they got that because we are in an instant generation. And my microwave broke over a year and a half ago. And when it broke, I had already understood a measure. I hadn't gotten sold out yet, but when the microwave broke, and this was one of my major appliances, and I can usually fix the stuff. I said, I'm not fixing it. Just let it stay broke. Why? Because what it does to our food and in turn does to our body is killing us. But yet, what restaurant can you go to where they don't rewarm the food in a microwave? Unless you can go to high-end restaurants, you're going to get some type of microwave contamination. That's the reason why we have to be vigilant for ourselves, and we have to go out and get better foods for ourselves. And you either do meal preps, you cook the food yourself and all this stuff. Stay out of these restaurants. It ain't too many of them that's not fast food. Even your like Applebee's and Outback, that's all fast food. Now, it may have a little sign up that's like it's not fast food because you go in there and you can sit down, you can dine, but it's all fast food. So unless you go into, a high-end restaurant, higher end, if you can afford that, and most people can't afford to do that on a regular basis, you're going to get contaminated. Your food, in other words, your food is not going to be fresh. You want fresh food. So you want to look at stuff. If it don't look like it was grown out of the earth, out of the ground, more than likely you should not eat it. If it don't look like it came from a tree, if it don't look like it came out of the ground, more than likely you should not eat it. Now, it's up to you to take this serious. It's up to you to want to correct your health. It's up to you to want to monitor and to do right by yourself and by your brother. Because see, here's the thing, ladies, and some men, in some instances, you feeding your kids. You are feeding your children. And what I see on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, you see all these little videos about all these cute kids, and they got all these marshmallows and chocolate and all this stuff, and they just full of it. They 1, 2 years old. And if you take it away from them, they will have a fit. You are feeding into a culture. The kid is your responsibility. The kid don't tell you what to do. You tell the baby what to do. So if you establish that, then you will start to shift the culture And you're definitely going to shift their health. And in turn, you're going to shift your own health, and everybody is going to be healthy. You can reset diabetes. You can reset prostate. You can reset cardiovascular disease. You can reset all of that in your diet. I'm going to talk at some point. I'm going to talk about gut health and talk about leaky guts and all that stuff, and how it can attribute to having heart problems and having high calcium numbers, and how it can clog up your arteries and all that stuff, just to, firm this up a little bit more so you can have a little more understanding, because this may be the only education that you get. You may not have the discipline to go and read and to learn for yourself. So I'm just giving you something real quick. Again, I'm not a doctor, but I'm like shake and bake. I can help, right? And God didn't allow me to go through all this stuff just so I can keep it to myself. Here's another one: whiskey. Now, whiskey, wine, beer. Let me just read this. Let me read this to you. Whiskey, wine, and beer. Just real quick. Where's my glasses? I hate these glasses right here. I don't even hate these glasses. But listen to this right here. Now, this is a mother talking to Lemuel, which is her son. And she says, "Give not thy strength unto women, nor thy ways to that which destroyeth kings." Because most of us, we want to be revered, and we see ourselves as such much as a king, right? And then it says in verse 4, it says, "It is not for kings, O Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine." Did y'all hear that? It is not for kings to drink wine, nor for princes strong drink. So now, if you a king, or if you professing to be somebody, right? And a king is somebody that I tell people when to come, and I tell them when to go, and all this kind of stuff. So you talk about, you a king, and you the man, and you the woman, and all this stuff. But if I see you drinking like a gas guzzler, then that means that you ain't loving yourself. Because here's the instruction from a mother to her son. She says, kings don't do that. Then it says, nor don't drink wine, nor for princes strong drink. Don't give them strong drinks. That's your 90 weight. That's 151 rum. That's cognac. That's all that stuff. Lest they drink and forget the law. In other words, now I don't know how to, I've forgotten how to navigate in life, in the things of business. I've forgotten. And pervert the judgment of any of the afflicted. I am going to make wrong decisions. Why? Because I am under the influence. I'm not in my right mind. It says, "Give strong drink unto him that is ready to perish." That's who you give it to. In other words, that's to a foolish person. If they ready to die, it says give strong drink to them. If they ready to go, you don't give strong drink to a businessman, to a manager, to a mover and a shaker. You don't do that, because it's going to skew his thinking. "And wine unto those that be heavy of hearts." That's those that you can't. Life is too heavy for you. "Let him drink and forget his poverty, and remember his misery no more." That's for those people. Now, this is very similar to when you read in the book of Acts, and when Peter is preaching, and those men that are around him, they start to speak in a language that is not known to them. And the folks that are around, they perceive it. They say, "These men must be drunk." And Peter says, "They are not drunk as ye suppose." Why did he say that? Because drunkenness carries a spirit, and it is a spirit for you to act other than who you are. It is a spirit for you to act other than who you are. Not likely. This is not likely my behavior, because I am under an influence. He says, this is not that. He says, but this is the Holy Ghost. So now what you want is for the Spirit of God to overshadow you and to act according to his Spirit. Now, how do we act according to his Spirit? According to our lesson today is many ways and forms, but according to our lesson is the 10 commandments, the first 4 commandments. And we would have to go down and understand those first 4 commandments to understand how is God with respect to humanity. How is God in that relationship? So that's that vertical relationship. Because once you capture that, it's going to be easy for you to flow and to relate to your neighbor, to relate to your brother, and to make the right decisions for yourself, and to make the right decisions for your family, for your neighbor, and for everybody else. Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am. And when I mentioned earlier, the 2 biggest killers, because some of y'all might want to vet that or critique me on that, that came from Healthline. That's where the information came from the WHO. We've been talking about the WHO, the WHO. That's the World Health Organization, which a lot of y'all ascribe to. And it also came from the CDC. So I just wanted to make that clear and get that out there. Now, I want to, and I'm not going to deal with it today, but for Sunday, I want, because we want to talk about loving ourselves. And so I don't want y'all to get mad at me. None of this stuff. I want to put it out, and I want to put it out in love. I mean this, y'all. I want to put it out in love. But the question is, do you love yourself? And so I'm going to ask you, do you love yourself based upon how you treat your wife, how your wife treats your husband? I'm going to ask you, do you love yourself? Because, see, I said we got messed up the last time we talked because we got in this eros, and eros is a very lusty type of thing. It's perversion. It's perverted. And so a lot of men, they express, I'm loving my woman, and my woman can only understand love if I put my hands on her. And over a period of time, because the culture allows it, the woman starts to perceive that that is love to me, even when he beats on me. That's why you look at now the girls out there say, I kind of like a thug. I like a thug. Why is it? Because I like the wildness of a thug. I like a, I want him to handle me a certain way. And if he handles me too soft, I don't really like that, because I just make it a little rough. And I get all that, but you have to understand where the culture is coming from. So at the end of the day, the man knows how to overshadow you and to still convince you that it's love when it's not. It's a perversion. It's what the enemy brings in. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm also going to talk about the penis and the vagina and the butthole, because are we using these areas naturally when we say that we love? I'm going to get into some deep areas of that. Where is it that you're planting your penis? Is a man planting his penis in another man? Is that the natural design? Is that the purpose of it? Or into another woman's butthole? I know this is, listen, but y'all hear it all the time out here. So let's talk about it, because at the end of the day, we still want to deal with loving one another. We want to talk about it. You got alcohol, you got marijuana, and all these things that you put inside of you, substances, all that. So we want to talk about relationships as it relates to loving. I want to get into female versus woman and the difference, because a female is not a woman, but a woman is a female. I know that went over your heads. I'm going to explain it on Sunday. A female is not a woman, and I'm going to show you biblically, but a woman is a female. And then we're going to talk about which is where we get the prefix for female, and it deals with the expression, the emotions, and the feelings. It is when God says, male and female created I them. The female part was the expression of God in humanity for the male, but the woman was for the procreation of God in humanity. We'll get to that part. Okay. Anyway, uh, we want to further delineate this issue of love, loving thyself. Today was a continuation. We're going to further this discussion even on Sunday, and we're going to get into some other stuff. I got so much in my notes that I did not get to. I actually got 4 pages that I started working on right after I came before you on Sunday, that the Lord continued just to start flooding me with all types of information. And so we're going to talk about it because it is very intricate that we understand this, that we establish it in our lives for our health sake, for our wellness sake, and for our brothers and for our sisters. Okay. So I hope you got something out of this on today. I want you to know that I love you. God loves you so much more. I want you to go in God. God will go in you. Go in his love, his power, and his strength. But most of all, I want you to go in his grace. Share this with a neighbor, an enemy, or a friend. And until we can meet face to face the next time, I am Dr. Donnie Eatman, by the way. I am the face of face to face. But till we meet again, I want you to have a wonderful midweek and the balance of your week. Shalom. Be blessed.